not even gonna lie and act like, you know, I'm gonna do better. I've got to the point, I'm gonna make a video when I can make a video. This YouTube thing has just been more harder than I just expected. A lot of days I just don't feel like recording, or I don't look, you know, like recording material. But anywho, I had to take advantage of this time period because not only is it Nurses Weeks, it's May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I think those go hand in hand, especially after the year we have had. This past year has probably got all of us pouring up the wine. I know you guys agree. So we have made it through unprecedented times. And I also want to give a huge shout out to the teachers because they were right in this thing with us and just as affected as the healthcare providers throughout all this. Like the way the school system was hit, I just can't imagine what some of these teachers are going through. And we're here because of teachers. From preschool on, they are the ones who help us become the professionals that we are. So we can't leave them out in this struggle. So like we all know, the big elephant in the room, well, it's not really an elephant, whatever, but we had a whole pandemic this past year, but we made it, thank God. I'm so happy that you guys are here with me. And I also want to send out prayers and love for anyone who has lost somebody during this time. So I'm going to get a little personal in this video and kind of talk about my experience, but I also really want to hit on mental health and give advice. So you guys pull out that old nursing diagnosis book that none of us use now, because who actually implements nursing diagnosis in the real world? If you do use them in your job, please comment and give an example, because I have not, to be honest. But let's talk about caregiver role strain. As nurses, you are a caregiver, whether you want to be or not. That is our job, and often we are all put in a position where not only are you a caregiver at work, but you go home and the role does not stop. You're always on go, you're always on go, you're always on go. What I'm going to talk about today, though, is not forgetting about you. We have to take care of ourselves. We can't pour from an empty cup, and we often give and give, and we go home, we give and give, and not all of us are in a position to be given back to necessarily. And it's not that no one wants to, it's just that I know a lot of us are strong-willed, like stand-up people that are like, I got this, and you're just used to being the supporter. So today I'm telling you, focus on yourself sometimes. So let's get it started. So rewind 2020. January starts off like a typical year. February, things got a little weird. This coronavirus thing started popping up. Now, I was skeptical just like anyone else about how serious this was. We've been through different scenarios, swine flu, Ebola, different things have popped up, and possibly could have been pandemics or whatever, but it just never went to this extent. But Corona got real crazy real fast. I'll tell you where it set in for me. Around March, like I said, I was still like hearing about states slowly starting to shut down, people talking about precautions, but there still wasn't much known. But like I said, it hit home when my mom was in a nursing home at the time, and they stopped visitation. I could not physically see my mother. So at first I kind of just, try not to think about it, emotional walls, let's not get to it. You know, you can still talk to her, but when I tell you those lines was busy, everybody was trying to call mama, grandma, sister, whoever was in there. It was just crazy. So time goes on, things get worse, things are shutting down. I work in a medical ICU, so guess who was COVID unit? Guess what? Us. So things started changing around there. We're learning these new isolation precautions, and we're trying to figure out how to fight this thing. And so much was unknown in the beginning, and I will say it got scary real fast. So March, we're still talking about March. Very tragic event happened. Like I said, more background on me. My mother was schizophrenic, and back in, let me see, it was 2020, I think 2018, 2019. I think I had her 2 years. I had her in Arkansas for 2 years, but I had moved her to Arkansas and became her sole caregiver, which was my choice. I loved my mom to death. She had been sick since I was 14, and my goal of being a nurse, like my whole life, from that point on was geared toward getting my mother back and taking care of her like she took care of me when I was younger. I had a great mother, and even in her sickness, she put me first and showed me true love. So losing that, which we'll get into, it changed a lot for me. Okay, so March hits. My mom's birthday is March 25th. March 19th, I was at work. I get a call that my mom went into cardiac arrest. They coded her for 40 minutes before they got a pulse back. And as a nurse, my mind automatically went negative. I'm not going to lie. I know too much. 40 minutes, no oxygen. She's not going to make it. I kind of knew that. But I tried to give myself some false hope. You know, I broke down at work. It was a whole scene that I'm a little embarrassed about, but it's understandable. But when I tell you, my co-workers had my back. When I tell you I love the Baptist Health Medical Center employees that I worked with in ICU South and even other departments who knew me, y'all showed up and showed out. I mean, the love was there, and I wouldn't have got through that situation if it wasn't for some of y'all. So anywho, they bring her to Baptist, to the ER. They admit her. We're just fast forward through this process, but long story short, my beliefs were, my worst nightmare came true. She ended up having too much brain damage to the point where she was not going to ever wake up again and be the same, or if she ever woke up, which she probably wouldn't have. I saw the CT scan, I saw the swelling in her brain, and like I said, as a healthcare provider, you just know. So anywho, I made the tough decision of withdrawing care of my mother on March 23rd, 2 days before her birthday. The timing just kind of happened the way it did. This kind of happened towards the end of the week, so over the weekend, things escalated. I just needed it to be over. I was in a nightmare, literally, and I just needed it to be over. So I didn't think about the timing. Like, I feel so bad because one of my aunt's birthdays around that time, I'm sure I ruined her birthday for the rest of her life, but I just needed this nightmare to end. So after that, my life just turned upside down. My whole purpose just changed. So my role was caregiver. Once I started taking care of my mom, the needs no longer mattered. I became a nurse. I was happy with that. After that, my goal was to give my mom the best life that I could provide for her and to spend as much time as I could with her, because for something about me just knew our time was limited. And there's things that she said to me that used to scare me, and I'm like, you know, God, what are you trying to tell me? So anywho, I really struggled with my identity afterwards, and I still am working on it to this day, because now it's like, what does Venice want? Venice is kind of in the air now, but that's a journey, and I'm just praying that God gets me through it. I will say I have a very great support system, but we're going to get more into those things when I start giving the advice. So that happened. I eventually went back to work. I tried my best to resume a normal life, but I wasn't addressing me and what happened to me and what I was going through and what that meant. And by July, I had caught COVID and then went through that, which that was the sickest I'd ever been. I was a young, healthy 27-year-old that could not walk her dog, would get short of breath from the smallest things, almost passed out from taking a shower. So that leads me into one of the hardest parts about not only dealing with COVID and fighting it was just how broad of a spectrum the symptoms were. You got some people who died, you got some people who didn't feel anything, you got some people, it was just so many things, and it made it so unrealistic and unbelievable for people. But when I tell you it was real, and I used to hate getting on social media and seeing the doubters, not only from me fighting it myself, but being in the hospital and seeing so many people lose their lives, I literally had to disconnect a little bit. I had to stop with the social media. I had to not interact with certain things because I would have been arguing all day. Like, look, I'm a nurse. I synced it with my own 2 eyes. What are y'all talking about? But anywho, so caught COVID in July, went back to work again. At this point, my job itself is a trigger and it's traumatizing. My mom died there. Well, I found out my mom was like in cardiac arrest there. She went to an ICU there, not mine, but a different one. She died there. And here I am going back in there. And I'm just like, I had reached a breaking point. By August, I completely broke down. And this is something that's really hard for me to talk about. I will say that this is why, like, we need to talk about mental health. I grew up kind of sweeping mental health under the rug. I've always had different anxiety issues, and kind of a depression, but I couldn't talk about it. When I tried to open it up once with my mom, it was like, nothing's wrong with you, don't say that. But I think a lot of it was her fearing me becoming like her. She wanted the best for me. But I think the best would have been to address these things and hit them hard. But she didn't grow up in that era, and I'm really proud that these newer generations are putting mental health on the forefront. So working in the ICU, I would see overdoses, suicide attempts, and I'm not gonna lie, I never understood until I got to that point where I got that tunnel vision where nothing else mattered. I didn't want to be here. I was in so much pain. Who was getting emotional? But you just don't know until you're there. So like I said, I had a breakdown, and I had to admit to my friends for my own protection. I really don't know what I would have done, but I had these thoughts. I literally did not want to be here. I knew I was loved. I knew I had support, but it wasn't about that. It was personal. Venice no longer had a reason to live. And I just kind of felt like everyone has their own thing. They're going to be okay. But that was selfish. I feel like, I know that people love me, and that would have devastated them if I wasn't here. But that pain for my mom, losing my mom, was so overwhelming. I just didn't know what to do with it. So, like I said, I took care of her. I had a bag full of all her psych medicine. And I contemplated taking them and ending my life. So I opened up to some close friends about it, and they got me the help I needed. I literally got admitted to a hospital, which was the best decision I ever did, because I finally I've been to therapy before, but I think that I was just pushed over the edge of no return, and I just needed that serious help. So that is my story and background. After that, a lot changed in my life. I made some different life decisions, started going to counseling regularly. I am on medication for my depression and things like that, but it made me really look at myself, like, how did I get here? So that brings me back to that caregiver role strain. As nurses, we don't know how to stop and take care of ourselves. It's always everyone else. It's always everyone else, especially if you have kids, a family, and even if you don't. Most families, if someone gets sick and something happens, who they calling? The family nurse. They want advice, what to do. Come up here. It's just, we have a lot on our plates, and nursing is a pretty decent career. So, sometimes with the financial support, it's just a lot that goes into nursing behind closed doors that I think a lot of people don't think about. It ain't all cute scrubs, okay? And it ain't Grey's Anatomy for sure. Okay, so now let's think about a solution. Self-care, self-care, self-care. Take care of yourself. And self-care is more than bubble baths and face masks. I love those. And, a little wine on the side, it helps. But we need to talk about real solutions and ways to take the stress off of us. So one I'm going to start with, I'm a big advocate for therapy and counseling. Everybody needs a therapist or a counselor. Just because that unbiased opinion, that person whose job is to listen to you compared to a friend or a family member, which those are great too. Like, you need that safe person, that friend, that family member that has your back, that's willing to listen. You need those connections. But it's also good to have that outside person, because just like you're going through stuff, your friends and family are too. So there may be times where they can't necessarily handle you or able to be as supportive as you may need them. But guess what? That therapist, it's their job. They always there. So that's one thing. Invest in a counselor, therapist. There's licensed mental health counselors. There's therapists. A lot of jobs have employee-based assistance programs, and you get free sessions through them. Like, whenever you feel that overwhelmed, hit that number up. Don't hold that stuff inside, because that was my problem. I'm always okay. If you talk to Venice was tip top point good. Unless you knew me, if you really knew me, you might have saw the other side. But even my closest friends and family didn't really know how much pain I was in until it all boiled over. And that was like years of frustration and pain. It wasn't like just that one thing. So that's something to think about. Do not hold that in. Also, self-dates, time to yourself. Say no to people. Do stuff that you like. I don't care if it's a walk in the park, a massage. Invest in yourself. Hang out with yourself. Get your favorite food. You know, find some quiet time, whether that be a book, meditating, yoga, exercise. You need to have things that are just for you. Now, it's nothing wrong with enjoying other people's companies, but you need to do whatever it takes for you to fill your cup up. Me personally, I do like hanging out with friends, but some of my little personal hobbies are, for example, working on this YouTube channel. I love watching like TV. I love a good movie. I journal. I am a spiritual person. I believe in God. I consider myself a Christian. So sometimes that is open up my Bible app, open up my Bible app. I said lap. Open up a devotional, praying to the Lord, help me please. You know, whatever that may be. Just having a talk with God, listen to a little gospel, or just music in general. Like that thing that kind of centers you and makes you forget. And I also have my doggy. She's just a sweetheart. She always wants to cuddle. So, I mean, of course, you can't turn her down. Like, dog cuddles? Come on. So, another thing. So, we talked about exercise, yoga. Prioritizing your time. Y'all, these jobs, they will replace you. You may have the best coworkers, the nicest boss or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's a business and they gotta handle it like business. If you leave today, if you drop dead, you disappear, they gonna hire somebody else. They might look for you a little bit, they might be sad, but at the end of the day, you're replaceable. The job needs you. You need the job, but it's a fair trade. So take time for you. Don't feel pressure into doing overtime all the time. We're all in the same position. It's short staff. I'm sorry, that's not your weight to pull. It is not your job to save the staff, the hospital, none of that. None of that is your job. Your job is to take care of you. So take breaks, work your 3 shifts or whatever they are, and sometimes it's okay not to. If you need to call in, don't feel guilty. If you are literally sick or if you got something going on or something you need a mental health day, I'm going to tell you what I did. I took FMLA because my mind was not in it. I could not effectively take care of patients at the condition I was in. I went to my doctor. I had been to therapy, and I did the paperwork because I could not. I just could not. Like I said, at one point, my job was a huge trigger. Every day I'm going into the place that so much had happened to me in. It was just a lot. And it's also part of the reason I went travel nursing. Now, I still have a relationship with that job. I still go there. But I need breaks from it. I need variety. I just needed something different just because of where I was at in life. So, like I said, main thing, take time off. Do self-care. Time with yourself. Learn to say no. Make sure you're exercising, get moving, you know, things like that. Therapy. We all need it. Another thing I would say is important, which I'm losing my thought, so I'm gonna look at my little notes here, and we're gonna have to edit this. Back on prioritizing your time. If you're like me, you have trouble saying no. A lot of times, my days are kind of just, I'm going with the flow. I'm in autopilot. If you call me and say, hey, Venice, what are you doing? I'm probably doing nothing. If I'm not at work, if I'm not at home, I just eat, sleep, repeat, like a lot of nurses do. I'll just say yes. Like, oh, well, I have no reason. It's nothing wrong with saying, you know what? I don't want to get off my couch today. No, I'm not doing that. You can do that. You're allowed to. Give yourself that time. So, with that being said, be open and honest to people about how you're feeling. I think that's the thing that a lot of people struggle with, communication, especially now that we're all virtual. Or that might be easier. You know, you can type it out. Do a little video call. You don't got to do it in person. But make sure that you're just being honest about how you feel. If you're tired, you're tired. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to take a break. And also cherish the ones that you love. make sure you're spending time safely in social distancing because this pandemic is not over. But be very careful, you know, make sure we're not getting each other sick. But also, this time made me realize that life is really short. So we need to cherish and love people while they can. Like they say, give people their flowers while they're alive. So I hope this was really helpful. I gave you a little piece of me. Like, comment, share, and make sure you guys are taking care of yourselves. I love you. May blessings fall upon you. I really hope that we conquer this thing, and hopefully we don't lose any more people.